Hello students. So as discussed in yesterday's lecture, today we will be discussing the types of ecosystem services. In yesterday's lecture, we have covered these 5 different sections: ecosystem services, evolution of the ecosystem service theories, and understanding the flow of ecosystem services, and ecosystem service versus functions and processes, with the example of wetland. And today we will be discussing 4 different type of ecosystem services which we discussed when we discussed the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment: provisioning services, regulating services, cultural services, supporting services. And we will also discuss one interesting case study again, and this is beautiful Central Park of New York City. Just to have a recap, this will help us. For that only I am bringing again and again ecosystem processes, ecosystem functions, and ecosystem services, which are 3 different concepts which you should be very clear of. Now let us come again for that particular discussion: interaction between the ecosystem and the society and the resultant ecosystem services. If we try to look at present and future state of biodiversity, and we would like to have the functions. We were discussing yesterday in the flow that if we have to have the healthy ecosystem service, then we have to have a proper ecosystem functions, which will come only from when all the processes, ecological processes, are intact. So for that only again I am repeating, present and future state of biodiversity is important, because we would like to have the ecosystem functions so that we get the ecosystem services. And the biodiversity, when we discussed, there will be several aspects of it: ecological processes, functional traits, biophysical structure, biotic interactions, species richness, and genetic diversity. So all these things together, ultimately we human beings are interested with the ecosystem services, the benefits out of it. And what it is happening in the social side, human being, as we know, benefits nutrition, clean air, water, health, safety, security. We should be enjoying also. So the human well-being is being served, and it is not only physical well-being, also the mental well-being. So we have been able to now put some value: economic value, health value, shared, that is the social value, or other values for these ecosystem services. So these socio-economic systems actually ensuring that ecosystem use and management. If necessary, we can bring also other capital inputs into the system. And we are the drivers of changes according to our need, requirement, mood. We try to bring several controls in this ecosystem processes, functions, so that this ecosystem services, that particular route is improving. So how we respond? We respond through the institutions, businesses, policies like agriculture policy, forestry policy, fisheries, environment, like that. And the different stakeholders and users, if you remember yesterday's lecture, depending on the landscape also, society also, our responses varies. So this is the more or less, you can say, the flow which is ensuring ecosystem services, ecosystem part as well as the socio-economic part. So ecosystems have potential to supply a range of services that are fundamental importance to human well-being, health, livelihoods, and survival. And Millennium Ecosystem Assessments in 2005, they have brought out this understanding of ecosystem services as the benefits people obtain from the ecosystems. They collectively refers ecosystem goods and ecosystem services as ecosystem services. This is important. to note. Goods plus services is the ecosystem service. 4 categories of ecosystem services classified: provisioning, regulating, supporting, and cultural. So, the supporting service, provisioning service, cultural service, and regulating services. Now, let us see in detail what these particular classifications are actually dealing with. If we start with the provisioning one, products humans obtain from ecosystems: food, raw materials like wood, fiber, fuel, medicines, fresh waters. What are the regulating one? Services nature provides that regulate the environment like air quality, climate, water purification, waste treatment, disease and pest control, pollination, extreme events moderation. There are the cultural provisions, that is non-material benefit of nature for humans, recreation like tourism, aesthetic values, religious and spiritual values, mental and physical health, education, they come under the cultural provisions. And the last category is the supporting one, the underpinning services that enable all other services to function. If they are in place, the supporting services are in place, then all other provisioning, regulating, cultural can actually have those benefits can reach the people. So these functions which encompasses both human and ecosystem needs: photosynthesis, nutrient cycling, and the soil formation. Now we will be discussing each one of them one by one. First is the provisioning ecosystem. So let us see what the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment team is telling us. Food, clean water, fish, wood, pollination, these are coming under the provisioning. How it is defined? Provisioning services are the products and resources directly obtained from ecosystems that are essential for human survival and economic activity. These include food, freshwater, fiber, biomass fuel, genetic resources, medicines, and raw materials. What are the characteristics of this provisioning ecosystem services? They are tangible and directly used by the humans. They represent the material output of ecosystems. They are often having market value and easiest to quantify economically because it's having a market value. Basis for food security, livelihoods, and economic production. Now, if we come to the significance part, we will see that these provisioning services link biodiversity with economic productivity. Their unsustainable extraction leads to ecosystem degradation and resource scarcity. Integrating provisioning services into policy always ensure that sustainable livelihoods and food, water, and energy security will prevail. And that is for the society side, as well as it will also help the ecosystem to survive. Now let us go for few examples of this provisioning services. Urban ecosystem as well as the natural ecosystem, from both the sides we will pick up the examples. First one is the food production. Urban agriculture, it can be the rooftop gardens, community plots, fishing from urban rivers, fruit trees in parks. The natural can be crop, wild foods, fisheries, livestock. Likewise, the freshwater, raw materials, genetic resources, and medicines like urban medicinal plant garden, urban forest botanicals. Vis-a-vis, in the natural one, we can see the traditional medicine plants which are being used in pharmaceuticals companies now. Genetic resources like wild crop relatives and medicinal plants, they are the good example of it. Regulating ecosystem services is the second category, which are the benefits obtained from the regulation of ecosystem processes that maintain environmental quality and stability. So, what are the services identified by Millennium Ecosystem Assessment Team? cool temperature, control flooding, purify water, store carbon, clean air. These are the things. Key characteristics of this regulating ecosystem services are that they stabilize natural systems and maintain environmental balance. They operate indirectly, often unnoticed until disrupted. This is very important to note. Regulating services, they control climate, water, air, soil, and disease dynamics, forming nature's self management system. They provide strong climate adaptation and disaster risk reduction functions in both the rural and urban context. The significance of this regulating ecosystem services are that they are essential for climate resilience, air purification, and hydrological stability. Failure of these services often leads to economic loss and disasters like floods, smog, heat waves. Integration in urban design and planning enhances sustainability through nature based solutions. So, for that only, in today's time, we are discussing a lot on this NBS and its integration for disaster risk reduction. So, again, I brought a slide on the examples. You can look at it. The services identified for discussions are air quality regulation, climate regulation, like urban canopy cooling, city microclimates, carbon sequestration by the parks and green roofs. In the natural, we can see the forest carbon sinks, ocean carbon storage. So that's a good way of climate regulation. Like that, water regulation, pest and disease control. In the urban areas, biodiversity in urban parks providing biological pest control. In the nature, predation and natural disease that regulates the forest. Pollination is also another service which we get out of this regulating services that continues the life. That is very important service. Next category, the third category is the cultural ecosystem services. And what are they? They are the non-material benefits people obtain from ecosystem through spiritual enrichment, cognitive development, reflection, recreation, and aesthetic experience. So you can easily understand from this description only, it is not having that much direct tangible value. So it is not so easy to calculate like the provisioning one. Let us see cultural, education, recreation, aesthetics, stewardship. That's the way Millennium Ecosystem Assessment Team has discussed the cultural services. Key characteristics, non-material and experiential benefits which are arising from the human interactions with the nature. It is co-produced by the ecological features and the human perception, culture and values. These cultural ecosystem services, they depend on landscape quality, biodiversity and aesthetics for emotional and spiritual connection. These services are context specific and subjective, varying across societies and individuals. So, what are the significance of these cultural ecosystem services? It enhances mental health, recreation and emotional well-being, strengthen cultural identity, sense of place and heritage values. It support education, creativity and community cohesion. These cultural ecosystem services are integral to sustainable urban planning and quality of life. And again, you have to understand, which we have repeated in our last slide as well, that it is very much contextual. Its value will depend on the context, on the society, on the landscape. Now let us go for a series of good examples. Recreation like urban parks, greenways, botanical gardens, riverside promenades in the urban area, or in nature like hiking, ecotourism, natural reserves. Spiritual and religious like sacred groves, temple gardens, religious sites in the urban landscape. In the nature, we can find sacred forest, pilgrimage sites, etc. Aesthetic inspiration, educational and research, and cultural heritage. Cultural heritage like historical urban gardens, heritage sites accessible via green corridors, They are good example of this cultural services. And in the nature side, we can find the indigenous cultural landscape, which is very important. In the educational, many of us we know how we enjoy the nature because it offers us a field school experience. And we can study biodiversity, we can study the nature, so many other aspects. Now let us come for the last ecosystem service categorization by Millennium Ecosystem Assessment. Supporting services are those that are necessary for the production of all other ecosystem services. They differ from other services in that their impacts on people are often indirect or occur over long time periods. So it's not direct or it's not a very short term. What are the good examples of that? Supporting habitat, biodiversity, photosynthesis, soil formation. So these are the good examples from the supporting ecosystem services. The key characteristics are fundamental ecological functions that maintain ecosystem structure and process. They provide the biophysical foundation for provisioning, regulating, and cultural service. They operate indirectly. Their benefits to humans are mediated through other services. So we don't understand them as a benefit directly. Long term and large scale in nature, sustaining ecological stability as well as the productivity. So, very important to maintain that flow which we discussed at the earlier period of today's lecture. The significance of the supporting ecosystem services are to maintain ecosystem integrity, resilience, and biodiversity. They ensure the nutrient cycling, soil formation, and the primary production, that is the photosynthesis, which support the life. This ecosystem service underpin sustainable supply of food, water, and climate regulation services. So definitely they are the essential for long-term ecosystem recovery and adaptability to environmental changes. So this is the fourth category of the ecosystem services. Let us see the examples. Nutrient cycling, soil formation, primary production, habitat provision. And again we can see the examples in the urban category as well as the natural category, like urban green corridors, wetlands providing habitat for birds, insects, natural habitat sustaining wildlife population. Primary production, photosynthesis by urban vegetation. I think all of us in today's town, we are quite aware about the urban agriculture concept. In the nature, we find the forest, grasslands, and oceanic plankton primary production. Likewise, we continuously have these supporting services which supports other services. So if we try to now summarize it, this ecosystem services, we can see that the cultural one, recreation, tourism, sense of places, regulating one, carbon storage and sequestration, wastewater management, erosion prevention, extreme events, provisioning food, raw materials, medicinal resources, and habitat and supporting. Habitat came from the TEEP group and supporting came from the MEA group, Millennium Ecosystem Assessment. So, habitat, genetic diversity. But if you read the outer cycle, you can see that it has a very strong reflection on the urban, like recreational fishing, ecotourism, lifestyle, employment, wave attenuation, sedimentation, filtration, denitrification, tissue production, shell production. Likewise, you come here, lot of pharma thing is here. And here we can see the advanced ideas of gene flow, shelter provision, associated food. So that's the way we can try to bring a comprehensive understanding together. Now I will go for the last segment of today's lecture, that is the example. And I think you will enjoy this particular case study, that is the Central Park from New York City. We say the lungs of New York City. So in the left hand side, you can see the Central Park. It's a bird's eye view. And on the right hand side, we can see the context of this Central Park Hudson River, Central Park, and the full of buildings in and around it. And when you look at it, you can see that there are patches of greens, patches of water. Also, very minutely, if you can try to follow it, you will also see some interventions, human made interventions. We will also discuss about it. Before that, let me talk about that why this particular Central Park came into being. In the early 19th century, New York was facing lot of pressure from the immigrants. Immigrants were coming from Germany and Ireland, and these immigrants were not being accepted that easily by the people who were already residing at New York. So the New York people started behaving differently. They were having their not only the basic facilities but the amenities also. They used to have the gated facilities. The parks are meant for influential people who can afford it for them. So the city authority could understand or realize gradually that there has to be something which is for public, and several different concepts, ideas they discuss so that this inequity, this keeping certain group of people who are immigrants aside. And you will be really amazed to believe that Central Park was having that social responsibility when it was conceived as a project. So let us see what happened. So as I said, that particular context, in that context, New York State Legislature, they approved the establishment of the Central Park in 1853. So once they approved it, then Frederick Law Olmsted, he is a landscape designer. He was appointed as the superintendent in 1857. Olmsted began working with architect Culver Voss on his ideas for Central Park in 1857. And in April 58, they submitted the Greensward Plan. There were 33 submissions. The board considered all these 33 submissions, and this one was winning one, which was selected for the implementation. This Greensward Plan is notable for the way it combined formal and naturalistic settings with architectural flourishes like Bethesda Terrace, which you can see here. I will also bring another image at the end where you can see that when people are standing here, what they can see on the opposite side. It's a beautifully designed space. And the ornate bridges that circulated traffic through the park. So it came as an intervention, but it was having, it's a area where some rocks were there, some water bodies were there. It's a marshy, swampy land it was. And today it's such a beautiful place. The park, perhaps most importantly, we can see that Olmsted and Voss's plan for the park created ways for pedestrians and carriageways to enjoy the park without getting disturbed. So pedestrians are there and at different level, and the vehicular movements are happening there. So no conflict there. The design's transverse roads, considered revolutionary, and allowed the vehicular traffic to cut through the park without substantially detracting from the park experience. So even if you are a car-bound person, you can also enjoy the park. So that was the type of beauty they brought in. Now again, let us go back and try to understand the background, the constraints, the limitations with which the design started working. It's a 341 hectare urban green space now. It is located in the Manhattan, the center of New York City. And it was designed as a public park, as I told you the story, in the mid 19th century to provide recreation and refuge in an increasingly industrialized society. It serves over 40 million visitors annually now, offering a vital natural escape amidst the world's most densely built urban environment. The park faces challenges related to urbanization pressures, pollution, habitat fragmentation, and climate stresses like UHI and flooding. as well. So these are certain ORIs which the park group, the Central Park Conservancy, is working with. This particular park is a good example of the food production. Over 10 community gardens produce seasonal vegetables and fruits, supporting local food security for urban residents. Raw materials like approximately 18,000 trees contribute timber and plant biomass annually for horticulture and craft uses. The medicinal plant, like urban green spaces, host native medicinal species used in minor traditional applications. So, these are the provisioning services which the community gets from the Central Park. Now, let us look at the regulating services. Air quality regulation. Trees in Central Park absorb an estimated 702 metric tons of CO2 annually, thus sequestering carbon and filtering particulate matters. So, you just imagine what type of machine you need to replace this service. Climate regulation. The park reduces local summer temperatures by 1 to 3 degrees Celsius through evapotranspiration. As I was showing, it is having the water bodies as well as vegetation. And it sheds estimated to save millions in energy cost. It is also offering the benefit of stormwater management. Vegetation and soil structures retain 9.5 million cubic meters of stormwater annually. Just imagine that figure. Mitigating flood risk. And lastly, the other control we will talk about, that is the pest control. Biodiversity supports populations of predatory birds and beneficial insects that reduce urban pest outbreaks naturally. So these are the some of the regulating services which the city directly enjoys from the park. The next example we will be discussing, that is the cultural services like recreation. All of us, the entire globe probably knows about Central Park, maybe for these cultural services. This hosts 40 plus million visitors annually and over 9.1 billion in recreational value estimated through direct use valuation method. So this is one of the valuation method you can see being mentioned. We will be discussing them in our next two classes. Aesthetics and spiritual. This Central Park provides venue for community events, historical landmarks it is, and enhancing the New York City's cultural identity. It offers environmental education programs serving approximately 1 lakh school children annually. So these are the different types of cultural services the city is enjoying. And the supporting services we get from the Central Park are the nutrient cycling, urban soils enriched by microbial activity which enhance plant growth and longevity, supports approximately 18,000 tree canopy and understory species. Habitat provision supports 230 plus bird species, pollinators like bees, butterflies, and urban mammals, ensuring ecosystem resilience. And from the primary production, that is the photosynthesis side, estimated 5 lakh kg per year biomass production supporting food chains and carbon cycling. So to conclude this particular case study from the ecosystem service lens, we can actually see that it is not only the ecology part, it is also the social part. On both the account is such a successful case. In 1853, as I told you earlier also, the New York State Legislature set aside the land to create the Central Park. The intention behind that historic act was to transform rock outcrops, swamps, and marshland into a public space that would provide a beautiful and democratic space for all New Yorkers. So you could understand that social and as well as the democratic culture. So when Frederick Olmsted and the Calvert were chosen to plan this new park, they set out to resolve this tear in the social fabric, thus the immigration was bringing in. and create a space designed to bring all people together regardless of their backgrounds. So that's a wonderful example of equity. So we can, through our designs, bring that social equity as well. While the city backdrop may have changed, Central Park's purpose remains the same, to provide a retreat for all visitors who walk through the gates. So that's the way we would like to conclude this ecosystem service topologies. So today we have discussed these 4 different services and the case study. And you can see here again from the Bethesda Terrace, when you look towards the other side, what wonderful sight you have in front of you. Beautiful fountain and also very nice waterways where you can even go for boating. These are the references for you. Thank you.